Have you ever wished there was a device that could record your dreams? Something that would simply allow you to show your friends that nightmare you had last night. It exists. At least, it used to, until the dream machine was demolished along with the blueprint. I'm one of the unlucky people to have come across it. I studied at Brown University last year and took a class specifically named Ornithology Tech. It was a course only available to students who the university considered elite. You had to be a double majoring in the two of the following four: psychology, neuroscience, anatomy, and computer engineering. It was an odd combination, but one that was necessary to be even considered to be a part of the class. All that was told about the class was that if you got in, you would be part of a huge and important project, one that you couldn't tell anyone about. Hundreds of students would apply to get into the class, but most would get denied. I, for one, was invited by my computer tech professor, Professor Lanson. He told me multiple times he saw potential in me, and that he wanted me to work with him on a project. Me and only 13 other students were admitted into the class. I walked into the class on a Monday morning. I looked around only to find out I was one of the 2 girls taking part in the project. That day was when we found out we would be creating what was called the Dream Machine. With trial and error, we were expected to have devised the machine in 2 years, our junior year. After long, tedious nights of seeing our ideas tarnished by miscalculations or lack of understanding what was missing in our machine, we tested it out on me. I was told to lay down with my team members attached all types of wires and almost every part of my skull. I was then given a sleeping pill. Sleeping pills shorten the REM period during your sleep cycle, which is where dreams occur. And this causes you to wake up thinking you never even dreamed that night, when there's a possibility you did, and you just don't remember any of it. I knocked out in a matter of minutes after taking one. I woke up to faces filled with disbelief. They were watching my dream on the TV attached to the machine. I had a dream that I was on a trip in New York, walking in the city, exploring all the little shops hidden in between big business buildings. We had created the machine a month earlier than the due date. We cried and even laughed, still in shock that this was happening. We showed a professor who was more than impressed. We then began to take turns using the machine. Until something terrible happened. On January 2nd of 2014, a classmate named Jeremy Castro had taken the medicine home so that he could record his dream. He brought in the tape and we watched it on the projector. We were told never to watch our dream without the class, so unless you remember what your dream was and the details of it, you'd be in a surprise along with the class. This was the first nightmare we watched. Jeremy's dream started with him at a forest preserve at dusk. The dream was 5 minutes of him looking at the lake, emotionless, when suddenly, without any rhyme or reason, he jumped in. It wasn't a suicide. It was the type of dream where you just have no control of what was happening. The dream ended with him underwater. We all looked at each other uncomfortably for a second, until we realized we should have been prepared to watch anything. We weren't prepared for what was to come next, though. The next morning I showed up to class, only to find Jeremy absent. This was strange to me considering he was always one to be early to class. I called him. No one picked up. The next day, he was missing again. That's when the class was worried and told the police. We stopped working on the machine, concerned as to what happened to him. We got our answer that Friday. He was found in the same lake. He jumped in when we watched his dream. We took our time to grieve about what had happened. Over time, we just decided Jeremy was depressed and dreamed himself drowning because he'd been planning to end his life. Like a lot of other things, we were wrong. The next day, the one other girl in the class, Delilah, came in with her tape, Having no recollection of what our dream was about, we watched it. It started off with all of us in the class listening to the professor. Delilah storms in with a distorted face. Her smile is huge and her eyes are wide and distant. We all turn around to look at her, concerned. When out of nowhere, like Jeremy, she did something with no known reason. This was far more disturbing considering we were all involved. Me specifically. We didn't laugh this one off. Delilah looked at me, embarrassed and frightened. Instead of analyzing the dream like we usually do, we just called it a day. The next day I came to class, still feeling quite eerie about what I'd watched the day before, and knowing what Jeremy's dream ended up happening. My heart stopped. I looked around, and Delilah wasn't in class. 10 minutes passed when the door behind me opened. I turned around to find Delilah there, with that same distorted face and insane-looking smile. I shot up from my seat only to fall down from feeling nauseous. Before I collect myself, Delilah was in front of me, her hands tightly gripped around my neck, squeezing the life out of me. I woke up in a hospital bed, confused and terrified of what had happened. I always had a feeling Delilah didn't like having me as the other female competition in the class. But I didn't think she had bad intentions. I still don't. Everyone has exaggerated dreams based off something small. I was told later that day that Delilah was arrested. I was most likely heading to an insane asylum. My professor paid me a visit. He looked at me, apologetic. I smiled at him. What we created was groundbreaking. We were able to capture a person's train of thought through their own personal film, he said. But we didn't master the psychology side of the experiment as much as we should have. Watching the happy, funny dreams was harmless. But something about watching the sad dreams, the horrific dreams, set off a reaction that was far beyond what we were able to predict. We were always told as kids to not talk about nightmares for different reasons. Bad luck, bad reactions from other people. Being able to actually watch our dreams, to see our dream selves in an awakened state, causes us to believe we are that version of ourselves. Over time, it causes us to believe those things actually happened or supposed to happen. So the next time you get angry or are not fully remembering a nightmare, don't. There's a reason why you can't remember it all. If you do, you'll unintentionally make it happen. Be thankful there's no dream machine. It's not natural. It's not safe.